Systemic racism is a stain on our nation's soul. The knee on the neck of justice for Black Americans. Profound fear and trauma. The pain, the exhaustion that Black and brown Americans experience every single day.
So why is there a seemingly giant chasm between the left and the right of politics in most Western countries when it comes to the subject of systemic racism? Ben Shapiro, for example, says point it out and we'll fight it together. For conservatives, if it is institutionalised, then it must be identifiable. However, Biden and Harris point to inequality of outcome in policing and the justice system as evidence of racism built into the system, and therefore they are looking for something deeper than anything written down as policy. But there may be three issues that Biden and his team may want to consider if they think they can bring about change without making it much worse, and instead realise maybe society has a solution all along. If these problems are societal, then it might be important to understand how society works before we actually go messing about with it, trying to confront racial disparities, particularly in policing and the justice system, as per the Biden team's statement. Individuals are not only bound by laws but by social norms, and these social norms are sometimes more binding than the laws themselves. And they also operate at the communal level within a structure of collective meaning and intentionality. Further, as per Jordan Peterson, they may even go into the subconscious, running who knows how far deep inside our minds, and these can only be discerned over thousands of years. Demonstrating why history matters, of course. How do Biden and Harris intend on confronting something that might go into the collective subconscious, and as I will argue, may not even be actually racism anyway? According to an important study, researchers discovered that as we become more aware of a situation, reductions in its prevalence can lead people to see more of it, sometimes incorrectly, which shows that we can't always rely on our perceptions alone. The study states that, to paraphrase, even well-meaning agents may sometimes fail to recognise the success of their own efforts as they help to create a problem that might not otherwise be there. Therefore, what may be perceived by the individual within their social structure may not translate to proof. Or worse, it could be wrong, could be something else. For example, in high crime areas, some people will be treated with more suspicion than others, yet despite racism possibly being a factor, it's only one of the many varied reasons why there might be perceived prejudice due to unequal outcomes. Outsiders are going to feel less inclined to go to these areas, and that was only going to prevent the area from thriving. Biden and co are perceiving this societal prejudice as racism, when instead there might be many reasons, with racism playing a part, no doubt, but only a small part of a multivariate reasons for the unequal outcome. But there is even more to it than that. Tom Sells speaks of how a subculture, especially from the southern US, has handicapped both black and white in the past, but especially now the modern African American subculture. Worse, there might be an element of self-own or even self-enslavement, for if even subconsciously the society deems itself enslaved, then does it have to be true for it to manifest itself in reality? Instead of white slave owners, now it is just the white intellectuals of the left telling the black community that they are enslaved, quote, by cheering them on in doing things that are completely self-destructive, end quote. They're only doing more harm than good. So might racism play a part in the prejudice or perceived prejudice of society norms of... Yes, and in both directions. But is it systematic or is it something else? If misguided people, though, in power go tearing at the fabric of society by manipulating us through fear, who knows what damage they might do. Certainly there are many people today who believe violence against the system is now justified. However, we may be overlooking the best solution. One of the great successes of the West has been to demonstrate that racial differences operating within social norms can be overcome, not by the implementation of harsh laws, but by exposure to differences, which at the individual level goes much deeper to bring about change than anything learnt from society. For example, football or soccer, with a growing adoption of especially gifted black footballers into predominantly white European teams, has, yes, exposed many of them to racism, but over time has created a significant positive shift in the general mindset of most, and may have done more for social cohesion than anything else. It's sorted itself out better than with the intervention of any president or commission ever could. But in demonising all of those deemed racist, or worse, turning them off football completely by overloading it with politics, will only exacerbate the problem. The solution might be more exposure rather than less. Presidents will come and go, but society is playing the long game and always gets its way eventually, despite the efforts of tyrants. The pattern of being will get its way. That's why understanding history matters, and trying to bring about social change is a disaster waiting to happen.